What's up, builders? So today I want to take a look at N8N's offering of conversational AI agents. And for those of you that are new to the channel, I build AI assistant chatbots, whether they are customer facing, lead gen, lead qualification type, customer service, or internal tool, Copilot embedded chat application style. So I wanted to provide my personal thoughts on these N8N AI agents, which I keep seeing, a lot of YouTube videos come through. So I wanted to provide my personal opinion on what this offering is and maybe compare it to some of the other traditional platforms that I've been building in. And maybe we can answer the question, when would I use this N8N AI agent over another platform like a Voiceflow, a Botpress, a Chatbotbuilder? So let's go ahead and get into it here. I'm going to delete this so you can see this from scratch. Those of you that have not used N8N before, you need a trigger to start. This is called a workflow inside of this designer here. So for the chat, the trigger is when a chat message is received. And you'll notice as soon as I click this trigger, I have a new button that populated at the bottom of the chat, and I can immediately begin to test the chat here in this window, which is a nice feature. So if I click this plus sign, you'll see one of the new options is advanced AI, and then we want AI agent. But even clicking agent, we have a drop down and a bunch of different specialized agents, which I probably plan on releasing additional content on as I mess around with them. But for today, we want a conversational agent, which is having a back and forth chat. And you'll notice the prompt source here is the user message, which is taken from the previous node automatically, which means, hey, chat's going to come through. That's going to become the user message. Now, putting this on the canvas has added 3 additional nodes at the bottom and then one on the right. This one on the right is your linear execution flow, do this, then that. So if we wanted every single time a chat message to come through, then the AI agent handles it in some way, and then it sends an email or something like that. Connect this to Gmail. You could do this and it would loop every time. Now you don't have to connect anything here. You leave this blank, the agent will just make the decision every single time it comes through and just loop over and over again. Now, the first selection is we get to pick the LLM. We get to pick the chat model, and you'll notice that N8N has a lot of the main models out here, including an open source one. So we got Olama here, which if we're looking for, maybe what is the cheapest option, we've got N8N, which is open source combined with an open source LLM. Doesn't get much cheaper than that. So I have my OpenAI credentials tied to this thing, which you can then see the drop down, all the models. We'll go to 4.0. Now, if we were to stop here, this is your GPT wrapper application. We could stop right here. You could deploy this, and then you would be talking to the 4.0 model. If I ask the question, is the capital of France? And my head might be, move this over real quick. There we go. The capital of France is Paris. So the other thing you'll notice on the right-hand side here, I have logs, which I really like here. So it gives us, this is what the input is from the system. And we can actually change this. If we double click back into the agent here, if we go to options, we can add our own system message here. And this is the one that is baked in here, which just showed up in the logs here. So if you wanted to say, hey, you were an assistant that does this, this is where you would put that prompt. Okay, great. Now, obviously, this is not very useful. Okay, we don't put agents in production that are just wrappers of LLM models. That wouldn't be very useful. Okay, we want to combine that with some other things. The second part of this is memory. Now, any chat application, you're going to want some sort of memory store, especially when you get into back and forth conversations where users are just responding with 1 or 2 word answers. If you don't put memory, the LLM won't have any context. N8N has a few different options here. If I was to put this into production, I would use Postgres, but for the purposes of this video, just to make this easier, one less thing to tie into, we can just use window buffer memory. Now, something to keep in mind with window buffer memory, if you deploy this N8N instance yourself, and you have an agent that is using window buffer memory, this is going to take up your server bandwidth and costs. This is going to eat you up, which is why you probably want to set up Postgres or Redis or something like that. Anyways, tools. Now, this is where I believe these AI agents for N8N start to become pretty valuable, right? Because as you can imagine, all of these tools here are common SaaS applications and tools that your clients use on a day-to-day basis or will find them useful. So tying into them directly through N8N, just by clicking these, save you a lot of development time, right? But let's say you have a tool that you'd find useful, like Google Calendar, okay? Let's say this agent turned into, okay, I have information about your company and I can also book a calendar event, directly through chatting with us. Think about what this node is doing and how this chat is set up, okay? The user is going to have a query and a message that's going to come through the central brain. And the central brain is going to do one of 2 things. It's going to just answer the question just from the LLM, or it's going to say, oh, you want to schedule an event? Let me call this calendar tool. And you can stack on, multiple tools here. It can do, Airtable. We're going to update your CRM or something like that. So you can stack all of these tools on top of your agent, but everything still goes in the same loop. Central brain to central brain, make a decision here, make a decision there. And this is kind of the first big difference between something inside of N8N as opposed to something like a Voiceflow or a Botpress or a Chatbotbuilder, right? If I open up, the Voiceflow designer here, I have a welcome message, then I can control what I type in here.
Today we launched,
I can add buttons in here. I can route specific things to happen. I have way more control of the actual conversation design inside of these platforms, and especially as they gain sophistication and bring custom web elements and components in here, you really can dial in the specifics of an individual conversation. Whereas this N8N setup, it's powerful, it's useful, it's connected to a bunch of things that I use, but I can't really get inside of the conversation and have that full control, which is unfortunate and was what I want when I'm building, most of the time, because I don't want to just rely on the LLM every single time, every single interaction. I want text to populate. I want to route you here. I want to open these URLs. I want to do things. I want to do more actions. And at least in this kind of base model, N8N agent, I don't really get there. I just get control the central brain, call a tool, answer a question. Now, I do want to show you one that is already pre-built, that has a knowledge base attached to it, that is functional, right? That way you can kind of get an idea. Okay, let me see this maybe a little bit more fleshed out, and we'll just leave this here. All right, so this is an agent that I have built that answers questions about Social Security disability insurance. Okay, I know that seems like a random topic, but just roll with me. So we've got a document that's 3 or 4 pages long. It's got answers to various questions here. So if we go back into N8N, let's ignore the bottom part of this for right now, especially because we just talked about kind of the top part. So there are two tools in here that have been added that you haven't seen before. First one is an HTTP request. So I make a call, and this is get list of all field offices. So if I want to know all the Social Security offices here, I just looked online. This is a public API endpoint. It's a GET request. I've got all of the body that I'm passing through to gain this information. The other part of this is a knowledge base. Now, instead of using something like a Voiceflow or a Botpress where you just load information directly in and they do all the vectorization and chunking and all this stuff like this, you actually have to set this up manually inside of N8N. And this is the vector store tool. And I'm using Supabase for this one. And N8N has some pretty good documentation on how to do this. I'll also link you another useful video at the end of this. But anyways, okay, so if I ask a question to this agent, one of three things are going to happen. Option one, the OpenAI chat model is going to have an answer just as part of the base LLM. So it won't call any tool, and the LLM will just respond. Option two, if I ask a question about field offices, it should pull some information, perform this API call, and give it back to me. And then option three, if I ask a question that is not in the base LLM model, but inside of my documentation, it should ask this question. Okay. So let's come here and start asking some questions. Can I get help for applying for SSDI? And I'm going to move my head over here so you can see the chat that comes through. And you'll see this start to execute here. And the model is actually spinning, which this tells me that the document retrieval tool did not even get called here. And you'll see in the logs, we have our AI agent, we have memory coming through. It went straight to the LLM and did not pick this tool. And you can even look at the answer. Yes, you can get help applying for Social Security disability insurance. Here are some ways. Local office, online. It gives a very LLM lengthy response. And if we go to my document, I only had one sentence. Social Security representative will help you apply for benefits by telephone or in person. Now, why is this happening? Well, number one, this knowledge base, it's not very, how do I want to phrase this? The information inside is not that different than the base LLM training model, because this is a very general topic, right? Social Security. And number two, I haven't given it enough specific instructions for it to dictate, hey, I need you to call this tool. So one of the things we can do is we can ask another question, like, what is the sources listed in this document, right? I have 5 different things in here. Disability benefits, a starter kit. So what happens if I say, what are the 5 sources in your document? Hopefully it will actually, there we go. So now we are actually doing the vector store retrieval call. And you can see in our logs, Supabase has come up. Boom. It's hitting the embeddings. Now this answer should give us, taking a little bit of time here. There we go, LLM. Social Security Administration, Adult Disability Starter Kit, Disability Benefits. It's giving me URL links to each of these. So this is just proving that I'm actually hitting the knowledge store here. Okay, now what about the third one? Can you give me all the field SSA field office information? If I hit enter, the agent is thinking. I don't know if you saw how quick that was, but that API request came through. Now the LLM is packaging this HTTP request. Boom, because if we look in logs and click HTTP request, here we go. I got this giant output here. If I scroll through, this is a long request, and here's the answer. Here's a list of some of the Social Security Administration field offices. It's even gave it some markdown formatting here. I've got some bolded headers here. address and phone information. This is just a small sample. There are many more field offices. So the LLM took this information from this GET request and packaged it into a readable response for me. And that was obviously capped, probably by tokens. You can see this is an agent that can do a couple of different things. And this is how your interactivity between these tool calls could start to formulate into something potentially useful. I'll move myself back over here. All right, so what about the stuff at the bottom here? Now this is to auto update our knowledge base into Supabase. So the first thing we're adding here, we have two triggers. You'll see this lightning bolt. These are the trigger nodes. And if I double click in here, you're going to see that this is set on a cron schedule. I'm obviously not going to do this every minute, but you can set, whatever periodicity that you want here. And you connect this to your Google Drive account. I have another video on that later that walks through this because I have a Voiceflow example I want to show you. But anyways, I've got this looking into a specific folder in Google Drive because I don't want my clients inside of N8N. I don't want them in Voiceflow. I don't want them in Supabase. I want them in the tools that they will actually use that are easy to share, and Google Drive is one of those. So just have one document sitting in this folder. It's looking into this folder for updates. So whenever this cron schedule runs, it's going to say, hey, has there been a new file added in here? Has it been updated? And then we're going to set a file ID. So this is an actual manual set from N8N. And the reason to do this, if you look at Supabase, we've got unique ID numerical order here. I need this for the identifier for the database. So here is a deletion. And the reason to do this is if this runs on a cron schedule and it is auto updating and adding new things, okay, you have old data that is being stored, towards the top of the database. We want to get rid of this because it's going to read everything and vectorize it each additional time. So this is a way to clean up the previous rows that were inside of the knowledge base. Download file, okay? So this is actually going to take the file inside of Google Drive and download it in order so we can extract the data inside of it. Now, something for Google Drive specifically, notice these options. We have Google Docs, it gets converted to text. Google Drawings gets converted to JPEG. Google Slides, PowerPoint, Google Sheets, CSV. Notice what is not on here. PDFs, okay? If you have PDFs inside of your knowledge base, you're going to have to add a handler in order to extract it, because the next thing we're going to do is extract the text from file. Now, I'm actually going to run this real quick so we can see what populates here. So we get this drive file in here. We've got a unique ID that comes through. Double click download file. Here we go. How do you apply for Social Security disability insurance? So we're getting a little bit of the content window that comes in here. Boom. Here's all the data. So this is all the text that just got pulled from this Google Doc. Then it moves, we're going to insert it into Supabase here. So here's the page content, and there are two nodes when you have this insert tool, which is the embedding, which we tie LLM to, which we have OpenAI again. And this text embedding small, we should make sure that this matches what we have in the vector store retrieval. Okay, that's really important. And the other thing is the data loader with the text splitter. So you can see that this gets split up into chunks. And for those of you that have messed with chunk size, this basically is the snapshotted window that the LLMs pull from. And if you start adjusting that chunk size, it will change some of the quality of your outputs, but it also will change the amount of tokens that each query will respond with. Okay, so what this does when it runs is it basically populates this spreadsheet, which is then vector stored. So you'll see that this just got updated in real time because I ran this again. It got new identifiers here. Okay, so what if we want to deploy this and put it into production? So the first thing you need to do is you need to make sure that this inactive toggle is turned on, workflow activated. That's great. Now, the next thing we need to do is take a look at the N8N chat code, web chat code here. If we scroll down here, we'll see the script tag, which is a common deliverable that most of these platforms give. So here's the HTML link and script tag. But take a notice here. It says your production webhook URL. So where do we find this? If we go back into the designer and we go to our chat message received trigger, double click inside of here, here is my chat URL. You can actually click to copy this and put this direct into the browser, and it will show a full screened chat here. My head is in the way again. Remove me. And this, hi there, my name is Nathan. Those you can modify looking at the, what do they call it? Initial messages. So you can pass a string for your initial messages here, but in this base model, it's, hi, my name is Nathan. Anyways, the other thing that's kind of nice here is they give you some other packages here with Vue and React in case you're using this embedded inside of an application. And then in addition here, you've got some other parameters that you can modify as well as CSS that you can customize yourself, which is good, and also full screen mode. So this is what you would do in order to put it in production. Okay, pretty straightforward. Now, let me come back here. Move my head. Now, when would I use this N8N AI agent? Okay, option number one. If I am trying to build the cheapest conversational AI agent possible, it's hard to argue that open source N8N combined with other open source tooling and LLMs, you can't get much cheaper, right? You're burning electricity at that point is what you're paying for. So if cost is a primary concern for whoever I'm deploying this for, certainly I might have a discussion with them about what the capabilities are about this AI agent. Number two, because N8N is connected to so many different things, depending on what tools I am calling and how difficult they are to connect to, if I don't want to go through the process of calling API requests and webhooks all over the place and developing these integrations to each of these tools, it might make sense to go in this direction to use N8N and just use their nodes and integrations that other people have already built out and connected. And that's probably the end of list, right? But I'm certainly happy that N8N has started to build in this direction because I believe it is only going to get better, especially when we talk about interoperability between different workflows in N8N and some of the other agent types. Like you can imagine, for those of you that like thinking of agent swarms, like handling a bunch of different things, you can certainly envision a bunch of N8N agents connected to each other, calling different tools, accessing information, and performing a bunch of different actions. But at this time, because it is more of this central brain loop over and over again, like LLM response, tool call, gather knowledge, gain knowledge, and kind of repackage it in an LLM, It doesn't have quite the level of control that I am looking for to build more sophisticated user experiences for the people that interact with my particular agents that I am building, because I know that that has been something that businesses are specifically requesting, especially when you're talking about lead gen and lead qualification and even customer service, right? But if you just want to spin up something in the customer service side that can just answer questions based off of knowledge bases, this is certainly a fine option. But anyways, shout out to Cole once again for giving me this template and showcasing some of the quick Supabase integrations in here and getting me online. I'll put this video in the description. And if any of you have built, more sophisticated things, certainly let me know, because I am coming into this green as well myself, and I'm sure that I will continue to build more sophisticated things and additional agents and share them as I go. But anyways, I kind of wanted to just get this video out to get 2025 started and get back into the habit of making videos again, because it's been a couple months now, but hopefully see you all soon. Happy building out there. Thanks.